me just check real quick so you guys can see this. Cool. Okay, so we're going to view slideshow. Okay, so this is how Hyper is going to work, okay? Hyper is an opportunity for you and I to take advantage of what's called arbitrage. Now, without talking about the hearsay and all that of what Genesis might do, we're just going to stick to how Hyper works. So when you want to take advantage of Hyper launches, you'll have TITANX tokens. Now, you'll be able to have those liquid or staked. Then you're going to be able to, when Hyper launches, burn those tokens for Hyper. Okay? Now, in the case where Hyper goes really, really, really well, and there's a whole lot of arbitrage and a whole lot of participation that ends up pushing up the price, which I will talk about in a moment, you could see the value of your tokens doubled, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. We don't know yet, right? But when your Hyper expires from that minimum 8-day stake, you're going to get Hyper tokens that are worth more than what your TITANX tokens were. Now, arbitrage only is ever actually realized when you go from the thing of higher value over here back to the thing of lower value. So you basically can double your position and you can continue that cycle. It's a cycle. Arbitrage is a cycle until that level meets in the middle again, right? So Hyper brings that, and that's the main incentive to burn your TITANX is profitability. 8 days to a 10%, 50%, 100% increase depending on participation. So now how this is all going to work, because like we talked about, when you burn tokens for Hyper, you are effectively giving, you have to pay 0.2 ETH for every single billion that you burn. When you do that, that 0.2 ETH goes into the buy and burn, buys TITANX off the market, and pushes up the price of TITANX. Then that TITANX is taken and is bought for Hyper and burned. And what's really important to understand about here, and I'm going to see if I'm going to bring, so it's important to understand how this all works. So ETH mainly gets its price from obviously BTC and other millions of dollars in liquidity, right? It's got liquidity everywhere. So TITANX being placed on ETH and built on it, and its main liquidity pool being tied to ETH, TITANX going up and down does not affect the price of ETH. But the opposite is true. If ETH goes up, TITANX will increase in value. Or it will drag TITANX up. If ETH goes down in value, TITANX will decrease and be dragged down with it, right? It's intimately tied to the price of ETH. Now, this same principle is exactly what happens with Hyper to Titan. But it's funny because ETH affects the price of TITANX and Hyper. Hyper does not affect the price of TITANX or ETH, but TITANX affects the price of Hyper. So what I'm saying here, very simply, is that when ETH is used for the burn, to burn 1 billion tokens, it's going to burn TITANX, which is going to buy TITANX using that ETH off the market. And then it's going to go, because it's pushing up both TITANX and Hyper in value, right? Because the price of Hyper also is based off the price of Titan. So if Titan goes up in value, it drags TITANX up, right? It's similar to ETH and TITANX. ETH goes up, TITANX goes up, ETH goes down, TITANX goes down. It's the same principle for TITANX to Hyper, because Hyper is built on Titan. So when Titan goes up in value from this buy and burn, it pushes up Hyper in price. But then it takes that TITANX and it swaps it for Hyper, which does not affect the price of TITANX, but it does increase the value of Hyper. So they're level, and then as soon as that buy and burn happens, or the buy and burn going all the way to Hyper, it pushes up Hyper relative to TITANX. That's where the arbitrage comes from. And there's also buy and burn from LP fees. There's an 8% builder fee that goes, well, it's called a builder fee, but 8% of the TITANX also that you burn goes to being to buying up Hyper and then burning as well. So you've got 8% of 1 billion, which is like 80 million. So 80 million per billion is swapped for Hyper and then burnt. So that's pushing up the arbitrage. And you have LP fees. So anything earned from this liquidity pool that's going to be created is going to be swapped into Hyper, right? All TITANX is going to be swapped into Hyper and then burned, which also furthers that arbitrage as well. So I hope this is making sense. Let me just check in real quick and see if you guys are getting this. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anyone say anything that's like, I don't understand what the hell you're saying. So I'm going to keep going because it sounds like you guys are loving it, Johnny boy. Also, yeah, let's keep going here. So, okay, if you go to the buy and burn example, this is just a quick walkthrough of it. So 0.2 ETH cost to burn TITANX for Hyper. ETH is swapped for TITANX, pushing TITANX and the price of Hyper up. And then that TITANX is swapped for Hyper, which does not affect the price of TITANX or ETH, but pushes the price of Hyper up further. And this is where that arbitrage is going to happen. Something that's interesting to consider here is over 8 days, this whole system, so everyone that wants to burn for Hyper has to wait 8 days. This means for 8 days, that arbitrage is going to be going up, 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 and ticking away. We don't know how much is going to affect it because we don't know what liquidity is going to look like. We don't know how much participation we're going to see. But if there's a lot of participation, that arbitrage could go way up there. Could be 50%, could be 100%, we don't know. But it's important to understand this so then you can use this to say, okay, there's a potential framework I can use here for my own participation. So I think I already did this one. Yeah, so again, one more time, the arbitrage flowchart. You start with TITANX tokens, either liquid or staked. You burn them for Hyper. You get the value of the original tokens in arbitrage. So it's increased value from Hyper when you get your Hyper tokens out in 8 days. And then you sell those Hyper tokens back for TITANX to basically realize your profit. And this is the arbitrage cycle, but maybe you want to stake for longer. Maybe you have other plans. I don't know. Like this is just the arbitrage cycle, but there's a million different ways that you could do this. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed that little clip of the course, and I hope that made great sense.
Thank you so much for watching this clip. If you enjoyed it and you want to watch the whole stream, there is a link to the full stream in the description, as well as all the links to any guests that you're seeing in this stream as well. If you want coaching from me directly, you can go to the links in the description for either a 30-minute or 1-hour call. I also have a book on Amazon that you can get in either paperback, hard copy, or Kindle, which the Kindle is absolutely free, as well as a free version of the book on my website in PDF format. So thank you again for watching this clip. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again very soon in the next one. Peace.